town by our standards, but perhaps one of the major cities here in Mauritania. Atar is actually the capital of the Atar province, and it serves as a great launching point for many of the trips in Mauritania. For my own travel purposes, I'm here to check out Atar itself, to see what small town life can be like here in Mauritania, as well as to use it as a launching point for day trips to the Terjit Oasis, as well as the ancient trading town of Shinqet or Shingeti. Before coming to Atar, I did spend 2 days in the capital city of Nouakchott. That's where I landed when I took my flight from Tunis. And however, that footage is pretty jumbled. It's very, very difficult to film here. A lot of people don't like their photos taken. So the narrative is not as clear as I'd want it to be. However, I will still try to share some of that footage, given that I did a lot in Nouakchott. I actually met a friend who was sitting next to me in the plane from Tunis, and he offered to take me around. We had lunch. We had a couscous lunch at his home. He took me to the fisherman's beach in Nouakchott, because fishing does form a considerate part of the economy here. I do have some footage to show you from Nouakchott. Here we are at the Atlantic Ocean. My feet are definitely in the water here. Just talking about how right on the other side of the ocean is the US, and life could not be any more different. We passed through the market. We saw fishmongers selling their fish. Some people wanted to be photographed, some people not. They tried to get some footage of the fish and everything. But this area just seems really lively, and it's not even as lively as it normally would be because we're during Friday prayer time. But what can I say about Mauritania? It's very different. Not exactly sure how to characterize traveling in Mauritania. It's one of the least visited countries of the world. It's also one of the least densely populated countries in the world. 90% of the country consists of the Sahara Desert, and its main resources are its vast coast on the Atlantic Ocean, as well as its rich deposits of minerals, especially iron ore. However, many of the people here in Mauritania don't see the wealth coming from the minerals or the petroleum which is extracted from their land. Many of these projects are owned by international European companies which extract the resources but make the profits internationally. And therefore goes the story of many African countries. So they're very rich in natural resources. Many of the profits or investment from these natural resources being extracted are not seen here on the ground. Mauritania only gained its independence from France maybe 50-60 years ago. And before that, its population was largely nomadic, meaning they would move from place to place in the desert. The city of Nouakchott, its capital, was established in order to create a capital city where there would be a balance between the country's demographics and no one ethnic group would dominate the other. Therefore, it's a fairly new city. There aren't a lot of historic monuments there, but it sort of gives you a look into how Mauritanian society is evolving to adapt with the urban lifestyle. Because Mauritania is so undervisited, there isn't really a tourism infrastructure here at all. There are a couple guest houses here and there, and so I've largely chosen to stay with hosts who I've either met online or who I've met in person, such as Abdul on the airplane. In today's vlog, we're going to be checking out the Terjit Oasis. I'll be guided by my host here in Atar. His name is Mohammed. And we'll be checking out this oasis, which is not too far from Atar and forms a significant source of fresh water here in the desert. So this morning we just had our breakfast, which consisted of some French bread with some gravy stuffed inside of it, as well as some instant coffee, and you must have the traditional Mauritanian tea. And one must sit down for at least an hour in order to have 3 cups of tea. Though the cups are actually this small, it takes a long time to prepare the tea. So what I've gathered is that it's not really about drinking tea or getting that caffeine first thing in the morning like it is in the US, but it's more about sitting time, intentionally spending time with other people, and appreciating the little bit of tea that you get to drink. And that's one theme you'll really find here a lot in Mauritania, is that you do things slowly. There is no lack of time here, and there really isn't much to do other than whatever you're doing, you do it intentionally, you do it slowly, you do it gratefully, and you really appreciate the basics in life that you have. I really can't help but contrast the ritual of drinking Mauritanian tea. You drink it 3 times a day, 3 glasses each time, and each time it takes about an hour. So that's about 3 hours of your day just sitting and focusing on your tea and the ritual of pouring and serving tea. In the US, we like just quickly grab our cup. We have like a 16-20 ounce cup of coffee or a tea. We don't really pay attention to how it's made or how we serve it to other people or how we drink it ourselves. And we usually just have our tea or coffee while we watch TV, while we eat, while we study, while we work, and we try to do everything at once. I think it's really unimaginable to think about how much multitasking is built into our daily life in the US, and multitasking is just not a thing here. In fact, multitasking would go against what you want to do, which is make use of time here. I've also got to say, I'm just walking down the street right now, right after we had breakfast, and I'm waiting for our taxi to Terjit. I've got to say, I slept really well last night. Just thinking about sleeping on the floor. Bonjour. Sleeping on the floor, I had a mosquito net around me. Slept under the stars. You really won't believe how cold it gets in the desert, but it's quite astonishing, but very relaxing. After spending time in Tunis and in Nouakchott, the capital, just remarkable how quiet and peaceful and tranquil this little town is. If I don't speak or if a car doesn't go by, you really don't hear anything. You can pretty much walk around without any traffic. There's just goats on the street. And people just kind of don't really know what to make of you when they see you walking down the street. The most approachable people are really the children. They will approach you, they will start trying to talk to you, say bonjour. The adults will just say salam alaikum to them. They'll confusedly reply back to you. But at least you know that that's a good sign. My host here in Atar is Mohammed. He's pretty well known in the online space. He's hosted many of the travelers who've come here to Atar, and he's such a great guy. He lives with his wife Naina, his son Buha. He has an older son who's currently in Nouadhibou, so he's not at home right now. But he's actually a licensed tour guide here, and he hosts people free of cost, and then also offers them services to check out the neighboring area. So I've decided to take one of his trips today. He's organized a vehicle, take us to Terjit, and then we'll come back to Atar in the evening. We just got into a taxi to head to Terjit with our driver Maulud. The first thing we needed to do is print out my fiche. A fiche is a sort of paper that you need with all of your basic details about where you're coming from, who you are, your passport document numbers, and all that. Basically think about it like a biodata for travel here in Mauritania. And I needed to print that out because I prepared it and everything in the US, but I need to print it out. And we came to the place where you can do all the printing and all of that, but there are 2 shops here. They left their doors open, but the owners actually left. So we're not able to do anything, and now there's a crowd here gathered to try to figure out exactly how we can get our job done. So we got our copies of our fiche printed. That will help you get through any of the checkpoints seamlessly, and you won't have to stop and then have the attendant at the check post take down all your information each time. So it'll save you just a lot of hassle. Now on the roads out here, you definitely get a sense of how Mauritania is one of the least densely populated countries in the world, if not the least. Whenever you see another vehicle, it's like a sight. You kind of greet them as they come up on the other side of the street. Also, when you drive and you've got the windows down, you can definitely feel the dust and sand kind of blowing around everywhere. I definitely put my face mask on because I start sneezing with all the particles in the air and the elements. But it's such a different landscape, I can't imagine it. I've never been to the southwestern US, but I imagine it must be something like that. And we've got Alyssa playing in the background, so great ambiance. So I'm realizing that we're actually traveling on the same road that I traveled yesterday when coming from Nouakchott, but that ride was just so uncomfortable, being stuck in the backseat with 4 other people, cramped up leg space, and having my bag in my arms and all that, and it was just so hot sitting right by the window that I did not notice the incredible landscape in this area. There are only 3 main highways in Mauritania, and we're traveling on one of them right now. The one that we're traveling on is the northern one, which leads from Nouakchott out into the desert, but on the northern side, across the Atar, and will take us to Shinguetti tomorrow. And the other one connects Nouakchott to the southern desert, leading up to the Malian border in the south of the country. And then the third highway runs along the coast, connecting Mauritania's 2 commercial cities, Nouakchott, the capital, and then the city in the north, Nouadhibou, which is a port city, and lies just south of the border with the Western Sahara. So we just took an exit off the main highway onto the road leading specifically to Terjit, and we just passed a roadside checkpoint. You're going to encounter a couple of those every 20-30 minutes on the road, and so that's why you need to have the fiche ready, which lists basically all of your travel bio data. That's going to contain all the information from your picture page of your passport, as well as the information from your visa that you get on arrival here in Mauritania. In addition to that, you might also want to add information such as your parents' name, which is also asked for at times here in West Africa, and your phone number, and if you're traveling in just a single car, the license plate of that one vehicle. And that just speeds up the process when you're at these checkpoints. You don't have to hand over your actual documents and wait for the officials to take down all this information. It's ready for them. They're just going to add any additional details that they might want in that particular instance, and then you can get going. So I had this document prepared and ready when I was in the US. All I had to do was print it out when I got here in Mauritania, and it'll make your life easier. Maybe you can carry around 20-25 copies of it for your whole trip here in Mauritania. If you plan on visiting Mauritania, whether in Nouakchott or the Sahara, highly recommend you grab a buff like this. It serves many functions: protection from any of the elements such as sand, dust, and especially sunlight. You will not imagine how strong the desert sun can be, especially if you're sitting in transportation for a couple of hours and you're right by the window, and that sunshine will be beating on your cheeks, and it's not comfortable. So you can always pull it up across your face like I am right now, and you'll notice that this is built into the local clothes that people wear here. Both men and women usually have their face covered all but for the eyes. Also, drinking water, you'll notice that your body will just soak up any moisture that it can get, be it the water you're drinking or in the food or any humidity if you can find it. Everyone seems to have fans which act as a joint humidifier in their homes, which we don't use normally in the places I lived in the US, but I can see why it's useful here. The weather is dry. Right now we're in the small village of Terjit. We haven't actually reached the Oasis yet. That's still a little further down this road. You can see that there are buildings here where people live, but they only live here part-time in order to welcome tourists in the summer. You can see the building behind me says school on it, and then on this side you've got some traditional homes with the thatched roofs. So there might be a few people living here in the summer to receive tourists, but as we can see right now, it's pretty empty, and a lot of that depends on the condition of the road. So the road so far has actually been really nice to reach this point, to reach the village. But apparently as we leave the village and get closer to the Oasis, the road gets a little tougher, and so many drivers don't want to come out this far. Trying to get the car up this sand hill right here. So it looks like the car couldn't make it up the steep hill a little bit, so we're gonna travel the rest of the way on foot. Apparently it's not too far away. Shouldn't be too bad. Just entered the Oasis. You can already feel the shade from these palm branches all around me. Just imagine wandering through the desert back in the old times, or even now, and coming across this water source. definitely understand after being in the desert how a mirage can be a thing where you just see water in the distance but it's not actually there. But somewhere like this is exactly where you'd want to be after roughing it out in the sun and sandstorms of the Sahara. So I was telling you all about this buff before, how it's multifunctional. It's great because it protects from the elements, but also has a built-in insect shield. It's treated with some sort of chemical for guarding against insects and withstands any amount of washes. So it's great for that, and also for use when it's a little cooler in the morning as a scarf. Yeah, and we're checking out some sources of the fresh water right here in the middle of the desert. It's really incredible to see. I know at home I'm surrounded by water, but seeing it here in the desert is completely a different experience. Right now we're climbing this rock formation, tracing the path to the water that you saw below. And yeah, it's true, you really cannot find a source of where that water is coming from. That's why they call it an oasis, but also not just an oasis, like a regular one that you would find in the desert, but almost like a miracle, a معجزة, miracle oasis in the desert, because you really cannot trace the source of where the water is coming from any of these rock formations. So doing a little hike here too at the moment. It's beautiful. You've got rocks, the green, saturated green of the palm trees, and then also the water nearby in the shade. It's the simple things that you take for granted every day, but when you're in the desert, they're stunning. As you can see behind me, the rock formations here are incredible. It almost looks like you're looking through like a fisheye lens when you take a look at this rock, but that's all natural. I still haven't figured out where this water is coming from, and that's a mystery that no one has solved yet. I'm even having trouble parsing my words and speaking right now, just because the moment you open your mouth, it just dries out instantly. It's really hard to have that saliva to keep the words coming and to really it's crazy. Heading back the way we came on the short hike, head back to where we saw the waters. Looks like there is some tourism set up here to welcome people to spend a day right at the Oasis. I've seen some tents set up, as well as probably some Europeans. They're just resting for the day. So it can be done as a day trip or just as a little visit like we're doing at the moment. This is a remarkable view of Terjit from up here. You've got the saturated green from the palm trees, the wind is blowing, I'm sure you can hear that. The texture and gradients of the rock formations here. It's really, really nice. When you think of a desert, you think everything's gonna look the same. You're gonna get lost in it, you can't find your way around. But then every now and then there are these landmarks, even in the desert, where nature finds its own and creates a memorable place for people to visit. You can see animals here, you've got people here, and it's just a source of life here in the desert.
يقال بأن قصة الواحة قبل أن يكون موجود أناس هنا كان هناك رجل عنده أقنان يذهب في أي مكان من أجل البحث عن الكلى والعشب. ذات مرة ذهب إلى هذه المنطقة فإذا به يجد المياه تتدفق. يقال أنه هو أول من اكتشف. رجع إلى أهله وقال أنا وجدت مكان فيه مياه لابد أن نذهب إليه ونقوم بالزراعة. قام بالزراعة، زراعة النخيل، وبعدين شاع الخبر وبدأ ناس يتفاوضون للنزهة وللزيارة. بعدين أولاد ذلك الرجل بدأت السياحة وبدأوا يفكرون في أن يؤجروا المكان وبدأت السياحة تتدفق عليهم إذا هذه بداية القصة، وهو مكان عجيب يدل على قدرة الخالق. هذا الجبال تتدفق من المياه، هذه المياه تتدفق لا تعرف من أين، هذا كله جيد، الهواء طلق، رائحة جيدة.
So the water that is coming from this unknown source is apparently potable and drinkable, and so people gather it from the bowl right here. Muhammad is filling up my water bottle with fresh water coming up from the source, so let's see exactly how it is. Taste some of it here. That might be the coldest and most refreshing water that you can probably get in Mauritania, but hopefully I will not have any problem after drinking it, but I will keep you updated on that. For now, we're making our way back out to the car. A little mini hike, not too bad, about 10 minutes, flat road, just have to walk in the sand. I have not realized how tough it is to be walking in the sand. I'm wearing the one pair of shoes that I brought with me, which are these really pretty low hiking boots that can also be worn in formal situations. Multifunction shoes. Everyone else is wearing flip-flops. I've tried wearing flip-flops in the sand here, and it actually works great. It just feels like you're at the beach all day, but the whole city is the beach. I finally realized why I kept saying that everything was such a saturated green. It's because everything else in the desert and even in the city that I've been seeing is gray, dusty, brown, clay colors, that when you see the green of the palm trees, it's so refreshing. I mean, for the eyes, it feels like you're taking a look at something that you haven't seen in a while. Just can't imagine what it would be like to be in an actual big city after a while. Right now we exited Terjit Oasis, waiting in front of our cab, and looking for our driver. So if you hear people screaming out a name, Wulud, waiting for him. I mean, there isn't really much out here, so there's only so many places he can be. We're back here in Atar after our day trip to Terjit. We're right in the heart of the marketplace. And so after we came back home from Terjit, we had our lunch. It was a Mauritanian dish called liksur, which is generally millet pancakes stacked one on top of another, arranged in a large plate with a traditional lamb stew on top of it. It's lightly spiced, so you can really taste the vegetables and the meat. We're back in the market here in Atar. I'm with Sham and Marie. There are two French travelers who I've met here in Atar. They're also staying with Mohammed. And it looks like they're doing the opposite route that I'm doing. You guys are going from south to north, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm doing north to south. So we've kind of crossed paths here in Atar.
Yeah. And we meet up on the road?
Exactly. So we're just trying to get through the market here, and I'm looking for a bank, and they're looking for some local clothes. So hopefully we can all do that before the sun goes down. All the streets here end up looking the same at some point. We just exactly. Like literally walked in a circle without even realizing we walked in a circle.
That's the funniest.
But the good thing is that there's only 4 directions you can go. There's a traffic circle right here with like a little mosque that looks like the mosque in Shigeti, which we'll go to tomorrow. And there's only like a couple directions you can choose. So it's a pretty small city, easy to walk around. So I've only withdrawn cash in Mauritania twice, and they've both been from this BMCI bank, both in Nouakchott and here in Atar. I know Sham and Marie have had mixed luck with withdrawing money from other banks. Either there's a limit on the funds that you can withdraw, or they just don't work with their cards. So if you are traveling in Mauritania, you can always check out and have confidence in using BMCI bank that will work with your Visa card that you bring from the US. And if you're on the road and can't remember which bank that is, or can't remember all those letters, BMCI always had the camel next to it. So in the course of my vlogging here in Mauritania, you might be wondering where I'm going to share some very mundane facts, such as which bank to use. It's only because there really aren't a lot of resources out there on the internet in English for how to travel in Mauritania. I found a lot of trouble trying to organize this trip, trying to figure out exactly where to go, how to do things, who to meet, who to trust. What's recommended, other than when I actually came here, spoke to people and got their opinion and got their advice and their help. And that requires a lot of like language and cultural expertise, which a lot of people don't have. So in an effort to make Mauritania, which is an incredible country, more accessible to the English-speaking world, I want to share some of these tidbits as well. Don't get bored. Really walking through some of the older and more narrow residential neighborhoods of Atar. Just see the brickwork and how narrow these streets are. They were not meant for auto vehicles. Mohammed was telling us that some residents were forced to destroy and then reconstruct their homes in this area in order to build a wider street to make room for automobiles. So we're headed back to Mohammed's place. I can already tell you what's going to happen when we get back. We're going to put our stuff down, take a little rest, another 3 cups of tea when the sun goes down. When he's done with a sunset prayer, we're going to have our dinner, we're going to rest a little bit, go to bed. I know that's what's going to happen. It's pretty predictable what happens in the days in Mauritania. You know the day is going to be punctuated 3 times with 3 cups of tea. And it's a great way of doing things. I have nothing to complain about here. I'm also very surprised with how I personally am able to adapt to things just not being like they are at home. Be it, the bathrooms, be it where you sleep, be it just the general landscape and cleanliness and culture shock and all of that. So if I am worried that I cannot do anything in the future, I know I braved through and with a smile on my face, so I'll be happy. With that, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at what a day in my life in Mauritania, one of the least visited countries in the world, would be like. And I'll see you tomorrow.